the dawn in the battle's chill. Flags unfurled, we march uphill. Hearts like fire, unbreakable will. Voices united, echoing still. For freedom we stand and are unmet. This long and struggle our spirits set. Hands clasped, time, strength unspent. In unity we find our lament. Under starry skies our dreams ignite. Facing the dark with fearless light. Though shadows fall, they cannot light a love for land, our fighting might. For freedom we stand and are unmet. The storm and struggle our spirits set. Hands clasped, tight, strength unspent. In unity we find our lament. Under starry skies our dreams ignite. Facing the dark with fearless light. Though shadows fall, they cannot light a love for land, our fighting might.
Okay, what about now? Yep, okay, it's working. Okay, what about now? Yep, okay, it's working. All right, so, well, I guess cut all the rest of that out. I'll run it back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for anyone and everyone, no matter where you are. I am Joseph Rose, your host for the Common Sense Pros and Cons podcast, and there's only one con to having common sense, and that is you're going to be angry. Today we're going over against another insane fucking impeachment attempt by the left of Donald Trump. Okay? They don't follow any logic. They only, like, this is the issue with the left. The Constitution only applies when they choose that it applies. Where people on the right, the Constitution just applies. All right? Now, if you see like this page right here, obviously, they have the Constitution in the background, right? And then they have a quote from Benjamin Franklin. Well, I hate to break it to you, leftists. Fuck it, we'll do it live, baby. Benjamin Franklin owned slaves. So why are you quoting Benjamin Franklin? On top of that, Benjamin Franklin's son was a loyalist to England during the Revolutionary War. And after the end of the Revolutionary War, Benjamin Franklin never saw his son again, right? Because he went to go live in England. That's pretty good. Right? So, that's kind of an issue, right? You would think so for people on the left. Since they want to label January 6th protesters as traitors because apparently all of a sudden leftists love this country so much that they have to take action against people who are committing treason against this country. Okay? Well, you're quoting a man here whose son was a traitor. And he was a slave owner. But we're going to get in this. We're going to break it down. We're going to go line by line. Oh, you're still first, Matt. Don't worry. Sylv just had to save me because I almost made another terrible mistake. First to say first. There you go. So we're going to break down this impeachment attempt line by line, and we're going to debunk it. And I'm going to show to y'all the bullshit of the left. We're also going to go over the actual impeachment clause of the Constitution, because the impeachment power given to the Congress is a check on the executive branch, okay? And it's supposed to be if the president is flagrantly, like intentionally violating the Constitution and the fucking, the law, right? The impeachment clause isn't because you think he's violating the law. The impeachment clause isn't because you don't like somebody. That's not how the impeachment process works, okay? That is exactly why Trump has been impeached twice and acquitted, because Democrats impeached Trump twice with no evidence because he actually didn't commit any crimes. They just went based on their fucking feelings. So without further ado, let's fucking break this shit down. Yeah, I'm not signing your fucking petition, you pieces of shit. Donald Trump has been sworn in as the president of the United States for a second time, and don't you leftists forget that. Not only is he disqualified from the presidency, but he's already violated the United States Constitution. All right, well, we're already going to fucking go over this right now. He is not disqualified in any capacity from serving as the president. Period. Do you, like, let me click on this. What do they have for? Trump is still disqualified. 4 years ago today, Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection in an attempt to overthrow the results of the 2020 presidential election. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. And this is the issue with people on the left. You personally can't claim that it's an insurrection and you cannot determine that it's an insurrection, claim that it's an insurrection, and then hold somebody levy legal ramifications or repercussions against an individual, completely negating the judiciary. That's not your power. That power doesn't belong to you. That power belongs to the judicial branch. And more so because he was impeached over it and he was acquitted for it, that power also partly belongs to the legislative branch as well. You as a leftist do not get to claim there was an insurrection and then use that to do whatever the fuck you want. There was no evidence. There was no findings to the fact that an insurrection was committed. Only 2 people out of 1,500 people were charged with seditious conspiracy. And sedition is just you telling. Basically, every American commits sedition every single day. Because Americans will hate a president or some stuff like that, and they'll tell other people, no, that's stupid. This president's stupid. The government sucks. Blah blah blah. All sorts of shit. That falls under the definition of sedition. Sedition is you basically spreading anti-government sentiment. So right now, every single Democrat in the United States is committing sedition. Right? But there's a fine line between actual, legally ramifiable sedition and just kind of like freedom of speech, right? Then there was a handful of people that were charged with like battery and assault of police officers or whatever. And everybody else for the January 6th protesters was charged with trespassing. No one was charged with insurrection. Why? Because no one committed an insurrection. How about you leftists ask yourself, have some fucking common sense and have a little bit of fucking intelligence. Wow, if there's a group of people in the United States that are responsible for owning almost the entirety of all legally purchased firearms within the United States, why wasn't a single individual who was committing insurrection found to have a firearm on their person? You think that people, conservatives, right? And this is y'all's fault because you think conservatives are so stupid that they're going to show up to commit an insurrection against the United States without a firearm? Against the government on planet Earth with the strongest military in the world? Are you stupid? There was no insurrection. Trump was acquitted of the charges for the impeachment attempt by the Democrats because there was no evidence that an insurrection was committed. And the media and leftists keep running this fucking narrative because you guys think that you decide when you don't. You are trying to usurp the checks and balances of the 3 co-equal fucking branches of the government. Your language, not mine. Okay? That is the power of the other branches, and that power was not exercised because there was no reason to exercise it. So you're already wrong. This article is already fucking lying to you. Okay? It is already lying to you. Every individual who has actually been determined to have committed insurrection of this country has had due process and was found to have fucking actually committed insurrection against this country. And y'all just, in general, don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But anyways, the case for impeachment. Congress should have opened an impeachment investigation into Trump's violations of the emoluments clauses and into his unlawful corrupt campaign practices on day one of Trump's second administration. You almost like the federal government through the FBI and various intelligence agencies, and then manipulating media organizations, kind of like using them to suppress information around a Hunter Biden laptop story. And the reason they did it is because they determined that if that story was actually let out to the American public, Biden almost had a 0% chance of winning the election in 2020. Wow. Kind of like that, right? Huh? Interesting. What corrupt campaign practices? The dude didn't, one, he raised less money than Kamala Harris, okay, and Joe Biden. Okay? What do you mean? Trump was duly elected through the primary process to represent the Republican Party while he was facing multiple false accusations of bullshit charges levied against him. He wasn't permitted to actually campaign because corrupt judges were abusing their power to prevent him from campaigning. He raised less money than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris actually raised no money. All of that money was handed over to her from the Joe Biden fucking candidacy, which is illegal. You can't fucking do that. Funding that is given to a candidate for a certain thing is given to that candidate. And if that candidate drops out of the race or is removed by force by the party in which they're representing, because he wasn't actually mentally cognizant and the media could no longer fucking lie and hide the fact that he was inept, incompetent, and fucking feeble. Okay? And then, guess what? Kamala Harris didn't undergo a primary process for the Democrat Party. She was installed like a monarch, installed by the Democrat Party. So fuck y'all. You're already lying to people, and it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Planning the forced removal of Palestinians from Gaza, Trump has repeatedly declared his intention to unlawfully and forcibly displace Palestinians from Gaza and for the United States to unlawfully occupy Palestine and financially profit from its development. The forcible deportation of civilian population from an occupied territory is a war crime under the Fourth Geneva Convention. Yeah, well, the Geneva Convention's bullshit. Not everybody in the world follows the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention is an international treaty. It's not actually U.S. law. A treaty to which the United States has been a party for more than 75 years and qualifies as a felony offense under the U.S. War Crimes Statute. Great. Wow. Hey, you guys notice what they didn't include in Section 1 of this case for impeachment? Any kind of direct quotation from Trump or any evidence as to the fact of him declaring his intention to unlawfully, forcibly displace Palestinians. No. Because I actually watched the press conference where Trump was talking with Netanyahu about this. And he said what he would like is for countries like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt to take in Palestinians so that Palestine can actually be rebuilt, because it's so dangerous there for the Palestinian people because it's a fucking rubble minefield, basically. That's what Trump said. Trump said he would like countries of similar cultures to take in a culture of their peers so that the United States could help rebuild the fucking land of Palestine for the Palestinians to resettle on, because it's so dangerous for them to live there. And the left wants to impeach Trump over that because he wants to have people removed because where they're living now is untenable. It's almost like leftists are the ones who are arguing that Palestine is fucking completely destroyed. Well, you know what happens in disaster regions? People are removed from those disaster regions because it's completely unlivable, or they're removed temporarily in order for the area to be rebuilt. Okay, so number one is already wrong. It's already wrong. Number 2, abusing his power to seek retribution against perceived adversaries. Almost like all the conservatives who got thrown in prison under the Joe Biden administration because they were conservative. Lawyers were threatened with basically life in prison for representing Donald Trump, which is illegal. You can't do that. You can't throw attorneys in prison for representing a client because you don't like the client. They went after Rudy Giuliani because he denied the election results. There's nothing wrong or illegal with denying election results. That's protected under the First Amendment. And they put him through a lawsuit to charge him like $360 fucking million for 2 individuals who claimed to be defamed. And then where was he tried? In a predominantly Democrat district with a jury of fucking Democrats in the fucking state of Georgia. Yeah, okay, well, number 2, you're already starting off bad. Trump, via his close subordinates and agents, has abused the power of his office to seek retribution against perceived adversaries, including hundreds of nonpartisan career public servants within the Department of Justice and the FBI, who were merely carrying out their duties. FBI agents, DOJ attorneys, and all federal employees are expected to carry out their duties impartially, regardless of the wealth, power, or status of the individuals they prosecute, and they're now being persecuted for diligently doing their jobs. No, they're not. None of these employees are actually being thrown in prison, nor are they being investigated, nor are they being tried. They were just fired from their jobs. Unlawfully firing federal law enforcement attorneys involved in special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into Trump and the prosecution of Trump for violations of federal law. It's not unlawful for the United States president, as the chief executive of the executive branch, to terminate employees of the executive branch. That's within the scope of the power and the responsibilities of the president, for one. For 2, the Supreme Court already deemed that the appointment of special counsel Jack Smith was in fact unconstitutional, which means the entire investigation that was spearheaded by Jack Smith was also fucking created on unconstitutional grounds. Therefore, everyone who was working with Jack Smith for that investigation should be immediately terminated, and that investigation should be thrown out, period. It was already found to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Okay? Unlawfully firing federal law enforcement attorneys involved in investigating and prosecuting Trump's January 6th co-insurrectionists. Well, there you go. You already fucked up because you are claiming they're insurrectionists without any legal justification of them being insurrectionists. Only 2 individuals were found to have to be charged with seditious conspiracy. No insurrection, no treason, just seditious conspiracy, which doesn't even mean that they committed sedition. It means that they conspired to commit sedition, which obviously isn't the same as committing sedition, right? Just like conspiracy to commit murder isn't the same as actually fucking murdering someone. No shit. Unlawfully investigating attorneys who were involved in a prosecution of Eric Adams. How is it unlawful to investigate attorneys? We just went over the fact that the Biden administration was literally trying attorneys for representing conservatives under the Biden administration. They weren't actually trying them for crimes. They were alleging that they were trying them for crimes, but it was because they were representing conservatives. There's nothing unlawful with investigating attorneys. Being an attorney doesn't give you any immunities. You have no immunities, no matter what your position is in the United States, from being investigated. And guess what? They're investigating those attorneys because they're finding evidence that the prosecution of Eric Adams, who's a Democrat, is actually politically motivated, because he only began to be investigated and the Democrat Party went after Eric Adams once Eric Adams spoke out against illegal immigration in New York City. Wow. What? I'm sorry. Anyone with common sense would actually go, hey, an investigation's warranted, because he's been the mayor for how long? He's been doing fucked up shit, illegal shit for how long? And only after he spoke out about illegal immigration, then he's being prosecuted? Interesting. persecuting retired General Mark A. Milley, who served as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2019 to 2023 under both Trump and Biden, including by revoking his security clearance to security detail and ordering the Department of Defense to investigate him. Wow. Again, nothing unconstitutional and nothing illegal for the chief executive of the executive branch to revoke a security clearance. Do you guys want to know something about security clearances? I have had multiple security clearances. And the president of the United States has the sole, he is the sole arbitrator of security classifications. Okay? This is why Trump was able to sign an executive order to have fucking the JFK files, the MLK files, the other fucking files immediately declassified and released to the public. Because the president of the United States is the sole individual in the United States who is the arbitrator of security classifications and clearances. So the president has the constitutional authority to revoke security clearances. Security clearances are a privilege extended to you by the federal government. That's just the truth. I'm sure states do it for like certain stuff, but obviously when we're talking about security clearances, we're talking about federal security clearances. They're the main fucking people who dole out security clearances. And an issue in the United States is a lot of people are taking classified, sensitive information and selling it to foreign adversaries like China and Iran because too many people in the federal government and outside of the federal government who have no fucking purpose to possess a security clearance, and they're stealing information and then selling it, right? So again, directing the Department of Defense to investigate a former chief of staff for corruption. I'm sorry, does anyone hear anything about that being corrupt or tyrannical or a violation of powers or something like that? Did or did not under Joe Biden and previously under Obama, before Trump was even president the first time, Obama ordered an investigation into Trump. Biden ordered multiple investigations into Trump. Biden ordered an FBI fucking raid of Trump's private residence over fucking falsified, classified documents that Trump possessed, even though that the same FBI also found a plethora of classified documents, more so in Biden's Delaware home. And they did nothing to him. And that's why the DOJ came out under Biden and said that he isn't mentally fucking cognizant enough to stand trial. So therefore, they weren't going to prosecute him for the classified documents they found at his residence. But again, right? And the difference between Trump's classified documents and Biden's classified documents, right, is that Biden had classified documents in fucking unmarked cardboard boxes in his garage and admitted to the fact that he kept those classified documents because he was working on a memoir or a book. And Trump's classified documents were stored in GSA approved fucking security containers in which you're supposed to store fucking classified documents in. Wow. Okay. So we already broke that one down. I saw online that the VA was paying $56,000 to water 8 plants. Probably. No shit, right? Rosie, none of your arguments count because they can't understand big words. I know, you're right. I'm fucking sorry. Stripping former public officials of security details despite these individuals facing credible foreign or domestic threats, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases Anthony Fauci, and other former officials who served in the Trump's own administration. Guess what, guys? Guess what? Anthony Fauci receives an annual retirement of I think it's the largest ever. What is Fauci's annual retirement? $350,000 a year. No. Like he makes almost as much as the salary of the president of the United States as his retirement package. With $350,000, he can hire his own private security detail. He doesn't need Secret Service protecting him. And yeah, he should actually face probably credible threats because he fucking helped unleash a very deadly virus on the rest of the world. For one. Man, that's so good. Oh my God. Again, hey, did y'all know that while Biden was president, Trump had his security detail stripped from him? Stripped down as much as possible. And on top of that, he had his security clearance stripped from him. If you are a former government employee, you have no right to a security clearance. You have no right to a security detail. The threats against Anthony Fauci and Mike Pompeo actually aren't that serious. And guess what? Everyone in the United States, I guess, then fucking warrants a security detail because we're at threat from fucking foreign adversaries all around the world, right? Conservatives right now are being attacked by leftists for owning Teslas. A pastor just had a transgender individual point a gun in his face on a fucking street corner, and I believe it was San Francisco, because of his religion and that transgender individual's fucking political ideology. Right? Where's his security detail? There's nothing illegal or unconstitutional about revoking security details or stripping former public officials of security details, and that's all they have here, right? Or their security clearances. They no longer need a security clearance. They no longer work for the federal government. They no longer need a security detail guaranteed to them by the federal government because of X, Y, and Z. Remember, Joe Biden denied request after request from from Trump and his team for heightened security from Secret Service. And heightened security, denied request after request, when Trump is probably the most threatened president ever. 2 assassination attempts, people, and Biden was denying enhanced security details for him, which is a form of stripping a public official of their security detail. And Joe Biden also denied Secret Service protection to fucking RFK Jr. while he was running as a candidate for the presidency. So, where is the retroactive impeachment of Joe Biden for his high crimes? Right? So now we just broke down section 2, and it's completely fucking false, and it makes no sense because it's being written by people based on emotions and not actually following the law. The persecution of these officials undermines the independence of the DOJ and the FBI and other federal agencies and agencies' ability to protect the American people from abuse, corruption, and crimes committed by people with power or influence. That is not the intent of these federal agencies. These federal agencies also have no independence. They fall under the executive branch. They fall under the umbrella of the executive branch. Therefore, they fucking adhere to the chief executive. Period. Already, you're fucking wrong. Truthfully, they are just people now, and general people aren't important. Exactly. Right? Typically, the only people who retain Secret Service protection after their tenure are like the highest levels of maybe the Senate and Congress, but predominantly it's just presidents. And they're very minor details, might I add you. Co-opting and dismantling independent government oversight. Trump has abused his power to fire officials from key government positions and curtailed federal agencies' ability to carry out their missions. Wow. So what they're arguing here is that anytime someone in the federal government is fired, it's illegal. Interesting. His act will prevent independent government oversight of his own business and those of his benefactors, including billionaire Elon Musk, who with Trump's encouragement and complicity gave $260 million in contributions to his own super PACs to support Trump's 2024 campaign, promoted a massive disinformation campaign on X, aka Twitter, which Musk owns, and engaged in an unlawful $1 million lottery scheme to bribe voters to vote for Trump. So if that was illegal, leftists, why isn't Elon Musk in prison for that? Because it wasn't to bribe voters to vote for Trump. He didn't tell people that if you vote for Trump, he's giving you a chance at a lottery. He's saying that if you had voted for Trump, he was going to do a lottery. Guess what? State lotteries are predicated on people buying fucking lottery tickets. So it incentivizes people to go spend their hard-earned money on a very corrupt fucking practice for them to have hope to try to win the lottery. Lotteries are just fucked up in general, if that's what you want to argue, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's almost like Joe Biden actually promised to forgive student loan debt to get people to vote for Joe Biden. That is Joe Biden making an illegal campaign promise because the Supreme Court deemed that that's not within the scope of the presidency to make that determination and actually execute that. Joe Biden then ignored the Supreme Court and did it anyways because he was a fucking tyrant. And he did that in order to buy votes. Yeah, because no shit, you're going to vote. If you're a single issue voter, or even if you're kind of like on the line, and then someone comes to you and says, hey, if you vote for me, I'm going to get rid of all your student loans. Wow, no shit, you're going to vote for that person. Why isn't that corrupt? Why isn't that illegal? Can someone explain that shit to me? In the words of a wise man, you have to take a shit, Mr. President. The country depends on it. That's what the Secret Service really does. Yeah, exactly. Ordered the unlawful termination of more than 17 duly appointed inspector generals of U.S. agencies who served as nonpartisan public servants charged with preventing government waste, fraud, and abuse. Many were terminated after or while their agencies carried out investigations into Musk-owned companies. Yeah, no shit. But just because they're in the process potentially, or have investigated companies that belong to Musk, because they were ordered to investigate those companies by Joe Biden, it doesn't mean that they weren't corrupt in investigating Elon Musk or his companies for corrupt reasons. Right? A separate agency of the federal government has already come out and determined that at least $500 billion of the federal budget every single year is actually wasted to fraud. $500 billion, $500 billion fucking dollars. So clearly these 17 duly appointed inspector generals that were charged with preventing government waste, fraud, and abuse aren't fucking doing their job. Get them out of there. They're not stopping waste, fraud, and abuse. And guess what? Inspector generals are inspector generals of federal agencies. And guess what? That means they fall under the fucking executive branch, and the chief executive reserves the right to terminate their employment. Because the president of the United States, POTUS, is the chief executive of the executive branch. Ordered the Department of Justice from investigating any violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits U.S. corporations and individuals from bribing foreign government officials to obtain a business advantage. The stop order will allow businesses controlled by Trump, his family, and his allies to bribe foreign governments without oversight or consequence. So now, again, notice how they are not... This isn't a link, right? This isn't a link. They just have the fucking text a different color. They are not giving us in any of these actual evidence. Like they assert the claim, right? You mean because Trump put a temporary pause on the entirety of the federal government so all the federal agencies can carry out internal audits while being externally audited by a third party government agency, Doge? Then it's him being corrupt? No. He put a pause on the federal government to root out corruption. Oh my God. Wow, the stop order will allow businesses controlled by Trump and his family and his allies to bribe foreign governments without oversight or consequence. Trump actually has no control of businesses because he's relinquished control over those businesses to his family because he's the president of the United States, just like he did in his first term. That's fucking just number one right off the bat. Two, you mean kind of like how Joe Biden went to Ukraine and threatened to withhold congressionally approved funding while he was the vice president under Obama to Ukraine if they did not fire their attorney general who was investigating the company Burisma, in which his son Hunter Biden was on the board for? Interesting. Yeah, fuck out of here. Appointed Musk, whose businesses have 100 contracts with worth $15.4 billion across 17 federal agencies to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Yep. Well, hey, you guys want to know something interesting? Those 100 contracts given to Musk, almost all of them were given to Musk by the Joe Biden administration. Because you remember Trump got into office and put a freeze on all of the funding, all of the funding the United States government was giving out, which affected Elon Musk and his companies. So when the left is talking to you about the contracts Elon Musk has with the federal government, and Elon Musk doesn't have those contracts with the federal government, his businesses have the contracts with the federal government. And he's not advocating to get more money from the federal government to give to his companies. He is working as a liaison with Doge, right? As a counsel with Doge to root out wasteful and fraudulent spending in multiple federal agencies. Though Congress did not create Doge or confirm Musk to any official office, Doge was already created. It was the USDS, the United States Digital Service, which was created by Barack Obama, and it was just renamed to Doge. So Trump didn't create Doge. Obama created Doge. Get bent. Or confirm Musk, and that's because Musk actually isn't a cabinet member. So therefore he didn't need to be appointed by Congress. He's a special counsel, almost like how there's special counselors to other things in the federal government, kind of like how there was special counsel Jack Smith, right? Doge has authorized or advised the termination of thousands of federal employees, frozen trillions of dollars in federal grant funds, limited to agency activities, and unlawfully accessed private data held by federal agencies, including private taxpayer information. Well, guess what? Doge is a federal agency. They were allowed to access this information because federal agencies access your private information every single day. They found in a single year alone that the FBI violated American citizens' rights because they improperly exercised the what is it? The Patriot Act. 220,000 times in a single year, right? Yeah, but you guys don't want an investigation into that, do you? Doge, as a federal agency with a special counselor authorizing, they authorized the termination of thousands of employees in where they were given discretion to. And then they advised the termination of other employees based on information they found to the heads of those federal agencies. Again, nothing wrong with there. Freezing trillions of dollars in federal grant funds because they're being sent to foreign countries. Wow. Oh my God. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Limited agency activities and unlawfully access private data held by federal agencies. You mean because Doge was helping assert that DEI was illegal and a violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act? Right? Yeah, no shit, because it is. Yeah, again, so they're lying to you about this, right? Notice how they phrase it. Notice how leftists use language, right? I want you to hone in on that. Fired the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel and one Democratic NLRB board member. Well, guess what? There should not be anyone in the federal government who is a Democrat or a Republican, especially not on the National Labor Relations Board. Because then they're pushing policy based on their political ideology instead of policy that is actually sound for the United States. Leaving the NLRB without quorum or authority to adjudicate cases. The NLRB was pursuing 24 investigations into Musk-owned companies and have filed case against Musk SpaceX, right? And what this case is about is because the Joe Biden administration ordered the fucking NLRB in order to investigate Musk and tried to fucking indict him for not hiring illegal immigrants to work at SpaceX because he is legally not allowed. One, you're legally not allowed to hire illegal immigrants in the first place. And two, you can't just fucking hire whoever the fuck you want to go work on rockets. There's very strict procedures in the United States in which corporations have to adhere to for the development of rocket technology because it has to be supervised by the United States government. So all you Democrats are doing in this is arguing a case of corruption for Joe Biden. Because you guys notice right here how they where was it? Right? 17 inspector generals, right? Many were terminated after a while their agencies carried out investigations Musk-owned companies. So they're literally saying that there were 17 inspector generals, and a majority of them, according to their very veiled language, were investigating Elon Musk. Wow, I wonder why are 17 fucking inspector generals or their offices investigating Elon Musk at the order of Joe Biden? Why are there 24 investigations by the NLRB against Musk? It's not because Elon Musk is corrupt. There would be like one investigation or maybe like 3 investigations into Elon Musk. They're literally saying, they're trying to say, right? There's like, let's just say, we'll just take 10 of those inspector generals. They're saying there's almost like 35 investigations that originate under Joe Biden into Elon Musk. And I would question y'all, look up the dates in which those investigations originated from and tell me, did they occur on or around the time where Elon Musk came out in support of the Republican Party? Fired 2 Democratic Senate confirmed commissioners of bipartisan equal employment opportunity commissions. Well, guess what, guys? Just because people are confirmed by the Senate does not mean that guarantees their position in the federal government. Right? Fired 2 Democrats. Did he fire all the Democrats? No, only 2 Democrats. Okay? They're appointed, right? Their appointment is confirmed by the Senate, but they are actually appointed by whoever the individual is that is appointing them. And then the appointment is confirmed by the Senate. That's it. And all that means is that the Senate goes, okay, we agree with this appointment for that administration or whoever fucking appoints them. Having your appointment confirmed by the Senate does not guarantee your federal employment. It does not guarantee your job. That's not how it works. You still are at the fucking discretion, under the discretion of the President of the United States to remove you from working within the executive branch. It is an overstep of the legislative branch in the Democrat Party trying to give more power to the legislative branch. And of course they would want to give the more power to the legislative branch. Why? Because they've brought in millions of illegal immigrants to use in the census in order to gain more seats in Congress, right? They're also the left is also the advocates for making DC the 51st state. They want to make the capital of this country a 51st state. And guess what? They just voted 93%. 93% of the voting population in DC voted for Kamala Harris. I fucking wonder why Democrats would be trying to make a 51st state that is almost completely fucking Democrat. That would give them X amount of fucking seats in the House and 2 more senators. So I wonder why Democrats are pushing to give more authority to the legislative branch that doesn't actually have that authority. It's called checks and balances for a reason. It goes both ways. The checks and balances aren't extended just from one branch to another branch. They are extended to all 3 branches for all three branches. That is not their power. The check on the executive branch to appoint people is that the legislative branch confirms it. They don't have to confirm a firing of that individual, because the legislative branch, they are not the ones who hire people to work in the executive branch. The executive branch is in control of hiring and firing people for the executive branch. Could you imagine if it was the judicial branch is the one who appoints congressional representatives and senators to the legislative branch, and then the legislative branch is the one, they're the ones who hire and fire executive employees, and then the judicial branch is the one who's responsible for appointing judges? Yeah, that's not the way it works, right? Like the judiciary goes through its process, the executive branch goes through its process, and the legislative branch goes through its process. Get the fuck out of here. Seized the operations of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, which enforces equal employment laws for federal contractors, and was investigating must-own Tesla. Wow. Yeah, again, another investigation directed by Joe Biden against Elon Musk because he came out in support of the Republican Party, which enforces equal employment laws. Yeah, you know what that means? Because Musk wasn't fucking allowing DEI at Tesla, they were investigating him. Fired two, wow, I missed that one because I had already read this one. My bad. Suspend all investigative work and other critical operations by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Fired employees and gave Doge access to its sensitive data. It is tasked with protecting consumers from unfair and deceptive practices from banks and other financial service providers. Had it not been shuttered, it would have regulated Musk-controlled X's planned mobile payment services and continue to supervise the auto lending industry, including Tesla. You guys see what they're arguing, right? Everything they're arguing is showing you the corruption of the Democrat Party and how they were weaponized against Elon Musk because he was the most prominent and rich individual who was politically active in the last political cycle. And because he was not in support of the Democrat Party and Democrats, the Democrats used the weaponization of the federal government to go against him. Why is it that Elon Musk was being investigated more than all of the other ICE just fucking found an Amazon warehouse that had a ton of illegal immigrants working in it. Where were the investigations into all the other businesses in the United States under Joe Biden while he was allowing in millions of illegal immigrants? Where were they? Yeah, because when you're actually practicing a two-tier system of justice and you are actually very biased and partial, you are concentrated on your adversaries, like the Democrats were and still are, and you actually aren't exercising the application of law justly or fairly. All you are outlining in this impeach Trump campaign is the corruption of the Democrat Party. It's fucking insane. Laid off or bought out between 4 and 10% of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration employees, including 3 of the 7 experts in an office that oversees safety of autonomous vehicles. It has 3 active investigations into Tesla. You guys see what I'm saying, right? They launched investigation after investigation with every federal agency possible against Elon Musk. Literally, they are highlighting it in their claim for impeachment. I'm sorry, why the fuck is there a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration? What the fuck do they do? What does the NHTSA do? Do you guys feel any safer on highways? Has there been any changes on highways at all? Can anyone answer that? Man, you know, I'm not sponsored by Chobani or by Quaker Oats, but I put a maple brown sugar packet of oatmeal from Quaker Oats into this vanilla Chobani yogurt, and I just gotta say, goddamn, this is good. I would assume they stare at the highways full of holes and say thank you. I mean, sorry, that's okay. Exactly, right? Exactly. What is their purpose? You go when you are auditing anything, any organization, you go and you find a department or an agency or whatever, and you go, what is your mission statement? They tell you the mission statement, and then you go, okay, how do you carry out that mission statement, and what is the success rate of that mission statement? So if you're the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, right? You go, what is your mission statement? And they go, well, our mission statement is to ensure safety for people on highways. Then you go, so if that's the case and nothing has changed across the United States in decades regarding safety procedures for individuals on highways or certain construction or anything like that, why do you exist? It's that simple. If your mission statement isn't being achieved or has been achieved, you don't need to exist. And then in the future, if we get back to a point where we need you again, then they recreate the agency and staff it to fix those problems. And then after those problems are fixed, the agency's dissolved. That's just efficiency. Unconstitutionally usurping Congress's powers. Trump has usurped or attempted to usurp authority and powers granted to Congress by the Constitution in several significant ways. He has created a position of authority in over federal agencies and installed Musk in that position. He did not create a position of authority. He has special counsel Elon Musk tasked with helping oversee the Department of Doge, which is just the renaming of the United States Digital Service that was created by Barack Obama and then repurposed because they don't do anything. How is that a violation of the advice and consent clause of the U.S. Constitution? Wow, let's click it. He shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers in the United States whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for and which shall be established by law. Is Elon Musk an officer? Because none of the other things they listed off, Elon Musk is. Is Elon Musk an officer of the United States? No, he is not. Therefore, the Senate did not need to confirm him. Therefore, Trump has not violated fucking Article 2, Section 2. Whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for and which shall be established by law, but the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law or in the heads of departments. You guys see that? They're literally right here. In the president alone. The president of the United States has the power to appoint inferior officers, which are our counselors, okay? Because they don't actually carry weight over the agency. They are just doing supervision, and then they take that supervision back to the president, and the president makes the determination of what happens. And that's exactly what is happening with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. God, you guys are really fucking yourself over, like, your impeachment article is an indictment of y'all's abuse of the Constitution. It's fucking insane, and anyone with common sense can see it. Literally says, but the Congress may by law vest the appointment of such inferior officers as they think proper in the president alone, in the courts of law, or in the heads of departments. Trump has the authority to fucking, you guys see that? The heads of departments. Because Elon Musk actually isn't a cabinet member. He is an inferior officer who is heading up a department, which is the power of the president. They literally have it outlined here. The Senate only has to confirm all of these other fucking appointments of the president of the United States, because all of these other appointments are officers of the United States and actually exercise a lot of authority, a lot of power. defied both Congress and the judiciary by blocking the distribution of trillions of dollars in funds that have appropriated by Congress under Congress's exclusive constitutional authority under the taxing clause and the appropriations clause. Y'all ready for this? No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. How did Trump violate this? Trump is denying the drawing of money from the treasury. Does this article state that the president does not have the power to deny the withdrawal of money? No, it does not. And as we know about the Constitution, if it's not expressly stated, then it is. Right? Or it is to be determined, which means that it exists in a gray area, and until it's determined, it's left undetermined, and therefore it's not a violation of the Constitution or any kind of law whatsoever. Okay? So they're saying right here that Congress, they're the ones who pass a budget. Well, can I ask you guys why? So if in accordance to the Constitution of the United States, Congress must pass a budget. No money shall be drawn from the treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law, in a regular statement and account of receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. Right? So why haven't they passed a budget? They just keep kicking the can down the road, for one. For two, if the government has multiple failed audits, according to this clause for appropriations, it really comes off as if it is the prerogative of the president of the United States to then prevent the spending of the money by the legislative branch, because there are no regular statements of accounts or the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. Right? Not appropriately. Or guess what? They're bringing the receipts, but the receipts are not adding up. Okay? So clearly the legislative branch is abusing its authority over appropriations. Bam. Here we go. What do they have here? They say Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 of the Constitution provides Congress with broad authority to lay and collect taxes for federal debts, the common defense, and the general welfare. Yep, Congress are the ones who pass taxes. So when you're upset about taxes, it's not the president. By the Constitution's terms, the power of Congress to levy taxes is subject to but one exception and only two qualifications. Articles exported from any state may not be taxed at all, right? Because it used to be that states... states charge tariffs on one another, and they got rid of that, I believe, if I'm correct. Speaking of mission statements, let me tell you about the ATF. Direct taxes must be levied by the rule of apportionment, and indirect taxes by the rule of uniformity. The Supreme Court has emphasized the sweeping character of this power by saying from time to time that it reaches every subject that is exhaustive or that it embraces every conceivable power of taxation. Despite few express limitations of the taxing power, the scope of Congress's taxing power has been at times substantially curtailed by judicial decisions with respect to the manner in which taxes are imposed, the objects for which they may be levied, and the subject matter of taxation. Let me explain something to you. Because I think what they're trying to say with this is they're trying to say that Trump exercising tariffs are this is why they keep saying it's a tax. Tariffs are not a tax. When they're in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it is giving Congress the power to tax the people under the jurisdiction of the United States. Not people in foreign jurisdictions. Tariffs are taxes on foreigners. I don't care what you guys want to say. If the foreigners then increase the price of their product because of the tax, that's of their own volition. It is not a tax on the American people. The tax is not put on the American people. It is put on the foreign company, and they pay the tax. But in order for them to recoup the money that they're paying in the tax, they have a couple options at their feet. Okay. And that is, they either increase the price to be able to absorb having to pay the tax, and then you buy the increased price product of your own volition, or they manufacture in the United States in order to avoid tariffs. Tariffs are the authority of the president of the United States. So then they have, you guys see what I'm saying? There is no case being presented in this case that's being presented, right? What they are citing does not actually give them any creditation or legitimacy to the case that they're fucking citing. And notice again, right, how they are asserting their language without it being fucking proven by the judiciary or the legislative branch. Trump and his administration have refused to comply with court orders, including by refusing to release $2 billion in congressionally appropriated foreign aid payments. Congressionally appropriated. Let me do something for y'all. Define appropriated. Wow. Take something for one's own use, typically without the owner's permission. Devote money or assets to a special purpose. Right? Because as we went over, Congress, through the appropriations clause, and they reserve the right to come up with an appropriations bill. That does not mean that the money has to be spent. Nowhere in there does it say the money has to be spent. Appropriations is just the Congress deciding that this is what money can be spent on. It does not mean the money has to be spent. Being ordered to do so by a U.S. District Court, and by the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court did not order the Trump administration to pay the money. The U.S. Supreme Court abstained from interfering with this decision, right? And they've already fucking what is this? On February 13th, the United States District Court for the District of Columbia entered temporary restraining TRO, blah blah blah. Yeah, this is them. That there was no decision made by the U.S. Supreme Court. They just kicked it back down to the U.S. District Court. They abstained from being involved in the case. That's what they did. So that doesn't mean that he was ordered by the U.S. Supreme Court to do so. And he was ordered by a U.S. district judge that does not have that authority. All that case should be passed up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court should be the ones to fucking actually make a decision on that, for starters. Okay? In defying this and other court orders, Trump has violated the U.S. Constitution and trampled on the powers afforded the judiciary branch by the founders in order to check abuses of power from the other branches of government. Trump and his administration have refused to release $2 billion of foreign aid in defiance of multiple court orders, refused to adhere to court orders that prohibits the Office of Management and Budget from implementing a freeze on all federal assistance, refused to adhere to a court order requiring U.S. Office of Personnel Management Charles Ezell to testify in person on March 13, 2025 in a lawsuit challenging Ezell and OPM's termination of 1,000 employees. This wasn't refused. This wasn't refused. This wasn't refused. None of them were refused. He refused to release the $2 billion after the initial restraining order was implemented upon appeal. That's something you could do, right? And because guess what, right? If you are saying, if a judge who is a democratically appointed Democrat, he was appointed by Joe Biden, right? If a Democrat judge tells you, the federal government, have to pay this money, okay? And then you say, okay, well, wait, we're appealing this to see if a higher court says differently. But the judge is like, but if you go and pay the money, you lost the money, and then there's no point in appealing. So the money should, at the very least, be frozen in place. Frozen in place for the duration of the appeal, in which it was. Okay? Refused to adhere to court orders that prohibits the Office of Management and Budget from implementing a freeze on all federal assistance. Again, it was the exact same issue here. They were appealing the process. And then they have come back and they have released some of the federal assistance with pauses still on other forms of federal assistance that they're investigating. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing unconstitutional with that. Right? Nothing at all. The United States government, through the threat of force and legal repercussions, forces people to pay taxes, right? Steals money from you, the worker, in order to make these appropriations. Everyone who works in the United States should be demanding clear-cut audits and investigations to the entirety of the federal government, and should be holding their elected officials in the legislative branch accountable for fucking wasting their money, and holding judges accountable for allowing the waste of the money. Right? That's supposed to be the checks and balances. The judiciary isn't supposed to abuse its power to accelerate the corruption of the federal government, or to facilitate corrupt practices of the government. Okay? And the federal government didn't refuse the court order to produce Charles Ezell. Charles Ezell no longer works with OPM. So how does the federal government force him to show up? Right? Receiving foreign and domestic emoluments. The domestic and foreign emoluments clause of the Constitution prohibits the president from profiting from the United States, individual states, or foreign governments. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8, and Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7. Okay? The founders understood these clauses to provide a critical safeguard against corruption. Trump has refused to relinquish his ownership stake in his companies, including real estate holdings and golf resorts, the Trump Media and Technology Group, which owns Truth Social, the World Liberty Financial. He already has or is assured to receive substantial payment and benefit from foreign governments, from the United States and from several states, and he has enabled Musk to do the same. Okay, wait a minute. These clauses prohibit the president from profiting from the United States, individual states, or foreign governments. What'd they say? They said Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8. Holy shit. The Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare, blah, 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 to borrow money on the credit of the United States, to regulate commerce with foreign nations, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, and coin money, to provide for punishment, to establish post office, to promote the progress of science and useful arts, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, to declare war, grant letters, to raise and support armies, to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government regulation. Oh, wait, hold up. I clicked this one, right? Where? You notice how these links aren't taking you to where you go? Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7. Huh? What? Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7. Article 2, Section 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The president shall at stated times receive for his services a compensation which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he shall have been elected, and he shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States, or any of them. Okay, so come here in case of the removal of the president from office, or death, resignation, and blah, blah, blah. What is or any of them? Right? Exactly. Shall not receive within that period any other emolument from the United States. Huh. So then why is it that Obama and Joe Biden left office with a higher net worth than what they entered office in? And Trump is actually, he left office with a lower net worth than what he went in with. Yeah. Okay, and then what was this other one? It was Section 9, Clause 8. So they 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What? No title or nobility shall be granted by the United States. Okay, and that hasn't been. And no person holding any office of the no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. I won't lie, this is actually a word I'm not familiar with. A salary, fee, or profit from employment or office. So he is not receiving a salary, a fee, or a profit from his position in office. His businesses are receiving profit, profit, fees, or salaries from services that they offer. Therefore, this is incorrect. It's incorrect. And just because other people want to invest in his companies, which he's already relinquished holding stakes in a majority of his companies, there's no issue with that. Depriving citizens of the birthright citizenship. We've already covered this. Birthright citizenship does not extend to illegal immigrants or the children of illegal immigrants. Y'all think that at the most racist, the height of racism in our country, where we fought a civil war, you thought that the people who fucking introduced the fucking amendment, the post-slavery era amendments, you think that they intended citizenship for illegal immigrants? And actually, the crafters of those amendments expressly spoke out that what is written in those amendments does not apply to illegal immigrants or people within the United States that are unlawfully present within the United States. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, we've already gone over this, right? They are talking about the children, all persons born. They were talking about the children of slaves, because as a what is it called? As a reparation for slavery, they were conferring upon slaves and their children U.S. citizenship, the rights and the protections that are given to U.S. citizens. This was for slaves. Stop taking it out of context. That is not the way that it fucking works. Okay? But I'm glad this is the one part of that amendment that they fucking quoted, right? Because we have gone over this. Why would they, if they were talking about illegal immigrants, right? If they were saying that it's perfectly okay for illegal immigrants to come into this country and they just immediately become American citizens and their children become American citizens, why would they include after this or naturalized in the United States? Because what they are inferring here is that the person's born in the United States, right? Because they didn't have huge illegal immigration issues then. That wasn't a fucking thing then, right? They assumed that persons being born within the borders of the United States were children of individuals that were U.S. citizens. That is why they differentiate thereafter the naturalization process, which is the process in which anyone who immigrates to this country is supposed to undergo. That's exactly why. So reasserting the common sense fucking logic behind, what is it? That's the 14th Amendment, or is, yeah, 14th Amendment, right? So the logic behind the 14th Amendment, right? That's yes, I am. Right? Why would they do that? Ask yourself why. Like, the English is a very specific fucking language. English is a very specific language. In accordance with the Constitution and how the Constitution was originally written, and further implementation of amendments into the Constitution have all been crafted to be very fucking specific, right? And in common sense, right? Because these people were intelligent. They applied common sense and that might have been their issue, right? Because they had common sense and you leftists are fucking idiots. That's why you don't understand, right? But all persons born or naturalized in the United States, ask yourself legitimately, why would they include the second half of that sentence? If they meant that illegal immigrants or immigrants can come into this country and their children are just immediately considered fucking US citizens. Why would they include that? They would have just said all persons born. Birthright citizenship extends to individuals who are born from people who are US citizens. That is what the intent actually is for the 14th Amendment, and it's so fucking evident. This is why leftists try to manipulate language and change definitions. Because if they change definitions, they don't have to actually undergo the legislative fucking process or the actual legal process for changing the Constitution. They just change the definition and then of words and then change the meaning of the Constitution. So Trump has not deprived anyone of birthright citizenship. All individuals born who are born to U.S. citizens in the United States are U.S. citizens, and everything that he's done in this administration and his first administration actually makes sense, right? He goes, American citizens who give birth to a child overseas still have to apply for citizenship. Why? Because there's less oversight of that child whatsoever. Right? Because when someone's pregnant in the United States, most of the time they go to a hospital and all their information is gathered and their child is issued a birth certificate upon birth. You have no fucking idea when people are abroad if the child that they have is their fucking child, or you can trust the documentation that was given to them by whatever country they were in regarding their child. They could have fucking kidnapped a child and said it was their child, right? So that actually makes sense. Then denying people who come to this country the ability for their children to become U.S. citizens by being born within the borders of the United States only makes sense too. It's actually in compliance with the 14th Amendment. Corruptly dismissing criminal charges against Eric Adams. He didn't dismiss them. The DOJ dismissed their case against Eric Adams. And why did they do that? Because the Department of Justice across this country every single day dismisses cases or charges brought against people for a plethora of reasons. They have determined that the charges being levied against Eric Adams do not outweigh the potential good that Eric Adams could actually cause by cooperating with the federal government. That's not corruption. That's not corruption whatsoever. Eric Adams is still a registered Democrat. He is still a Democrat. He's just a Democrat who's being fucked over by the Democrat Party and has decided to cooperate with the federal government to help secure the United States and enforce federal law. And that's why they started going after Eric Adams. Abusing the pardon power. Trump has abused the pardon power and undermined due process of law. Trump pardoned more than 1,500 January 6th co-insurrectionists. You see again? How many January 6th defendants were charged with insurrection? From ABC News. Federal prosecutors have charged more than 1,265 defendants across nearly 50 states, blah, blah, blah. So we're back. Okay. So now, as I was saying, Enrique Tarrio sentenced to 22 years in prison last September after being found guilty on charges of seditious conspiracy. The founder of anti-government extremist group The Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, was sentenced to 18 years in prison in May of last year for his role in leading the militia group in January 6 attacks. There was no militia group. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison for what, right? So you notice how they ABC News, abcnews.go.com literally says right here, the harshest sentence yet handed down as part of the DOJ's investigation was for Proud Boys leader who was sentenced to 22 years for seditious conspiracy. Not insurrection. Okay, well, we already proved it again. Commuted the sentences of 14 additional protesters and ordered the Department of Justice to drop cases against all remaining January 6 defendants. He has absolved even those 400 protesters who were charged with committing violent crimes against law enforcement after inciting the protest. Trump has now blocked our country's efforts to hold his fellow protesters accountable, and in so doing further protects himself from investigation and repercussions of his own role in the protests. They impeached Trump over this. They acquitted Trump over this because no evidence there was not sufficient evidence, and there wasn't not even legitimate evidence to prove an insurrection. So how is that undermining or abusing the pardon power? Because he pardoned protesters who are being raked over the coals by leftists and leftist media by constantly labeling them and branding them as insurrectionists to fearmonger, to try to have these people punished for crimes that they actually did not commit. Almost all of these individuals, they were charged with fucking trespassing. A handful of them were actually fucking responsible for assaults and battery of federal officers. A bunch of the other ones who were charged with it were just charged with it because they were there. They didn't actually partake in actually harming any fucking law enforcement whatsoever. No one killed any law enforcement on January 6th or because of January 6th. The only person on January 6th to die were protesters. The only person on January 6th to die directly because of the protests of January 6th was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot and killed by a Capitol police officer. Or it was a Capitol police officer or a DC Metro officer. They didn't commit insurrection. None of them have been charged with insurrection. So if you continue to say fucking insurrection, we're going to have issues. We're going to have issues. Because you are fear-mongering to people and brainwashing people to believe that there was an insurrection that did not occur. No one died except a protester. They didn't have guns. What the fuck do you mean an insurrection? Trump pardoned 23 anti-abortion protesters. Dear God. Wow. Oh my God. That's an abuse of the pardon power. Holy shit. Hey, Google. How many people did Joe Biden pardon? Pardons granted by Biden. Oh my God. You see all these pardons right here? From April 26th of 2022. Bobby Darrell Lowry, possession of cocaine base with intent to distribute, felon in possession of a firearm. Conspiracy to distribute cocaine, use of communication facility, and furtherance of drug offenses. Conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine. This motherfucker pardoned or commuted the sentences of individuals that were giving cocaine to his son. Knowingly, willfully, intentionally distributing a quantity of cocaine base commonly known as crack. Conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute controlled substances. Cocaine base. You guys see this, right? You guys see this. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. Conspiracy to violate the Export Control Reform Act. Smuggling goods into the U.S. For those offenses against the United States that which he has committed, blah, blah, blah. Robert Hunter Biden on December 1st, 2024. He gave him a back pardon of 11 years. December 12th, 2024. Nina Simona Allen, Kelsey Lynn Becklin, Duran Arthur Brown, Norman O'Neill Brown. 3 years imprisonment. Offense, unlawful distribution of cocaine, conspiracy to commit wire fraud and a mortgage fraud scheme, misprison of a felony, conspiracy to defraud financial institutions, unauthorized use of a vehicle bail reform act, Arthur Lawrence Byrd, Sarah Jean Carlson, misprison of a felony. I don't know what the fuck misprison is, but whatever. Let's see. January 19th, 2025. Description, pardon. 1. Holy shit. Being known that this day, Joseph R. Biden, Jr., President of the United States, pursuant to my powers, blah, 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 clause what? The members of Congress who served on the select committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Why would they be pardoned? We've already gone over how pardons come after the fact of being convicted of a crime. You cannot be pardoned of a crime you have not been convicted for. So this is an abuse of the pardon power. You do not have preemptive pardoning power, right? You don't have that. A full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against the United States which they have made, committed, or taken part in, arising from, or in any manner related to activities or subject matter of the select committee to investigate January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. He is literally stating in this that he is aware, the President of the United States, Joseph Biden, is aware that the members of the January 6th committee did in fact violate the law and commit offenses against the United States and its people in their execution of the January 6th committee and their flagrant abuses. Therefore, he preemptively pardoned them. Okay, back. Warrant 2. Dr. Anthony Fauci, for any offenses against the United States which he may have committed or taken a part of enduring from a period from January 1st of 2014 through the date of this pardon. And when is the date of this pardon? The date of this pardon is something 2024, something 2025, right? Another pardon for 11 years of crimes that he hasn't been convicted of. Preemptive pardons are and Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution I've granted onto. Let me see. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. Constitution. Nope. I don't want that. I want this. The president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into he may acquire the opinion in writing of a principal officer in each of the executive branches upon any subject relating to duties of their shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States in cases of impeachment, right? Like, so he can't pardon himself. That's what that is. Okay? Because the actual check and balance of the executive branch for crimes being committed by the president, the Congress does the judicial proceedings. Therefore, he can't forgive himself for stuff like that. Okay? That's all it says, is that the power has the office of the presidency has the power to grant reprieves and pardons. So again, Trump hasn't abused anything that. Okay? So he pardoned Fauci for crimes he hasn't been convicted of. Preemptive pardons are actually a violation of the pardoning power because a pardon is supposed to be after conviction of a crime. General Mark A. Milley. Again, there you go. Another abuse of power by Joseph Biden. Wow. Huh. Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, pardons James B. Biden, Sarah Jones Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, John T. Owens, and Francis W. Biden. Well, if I was going to say that there's an abuse of the pardon power, it's when you're pardoning your own fucking family. Yeah, come at me again. Come at me again, left. You fucking suck at this. To all to whom these presents shall come greeting, I hear... Wow, did he write that himself? I hereby grant a full and unconditional pardon to Ernest William Cromartie for those offenses against the United States as contained in this position of Department of Justice. I hereby further designate, direct, and empower the pardon attorney as my representative to sign the grant of clemency to the person named herein, because he couldn't sign his own fucking signature. The pardon attorney shall declare in her action is the act of the president being performed at my direction, in testimony whereof I hereunto sign my name and cause the seal of the Department of Justice to be affixed. Wow. Wow. He literally also puts in here that he was incapable of signing this pardon. Warrant 7. Okay. Daryl Chambers, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Ravidath Ragbeer, Don Leonard Scott Jr., Kemba Smith Prati. I don't even know who the fuck those people are, right? But that wasn't my concern. My concern was the fact that he pardoned his family. And you want to talk about abuses of power? That's insane. He preemptively pardoned people, guys. That's actually an abuse of the pardoning power. Abusing the emergency power. The president's power to declare an emergency affords Trump access to powers and authority not formally afforded to the president. He has abused his power by falsely declaring national emergencies in order to bypass the rule of law. Declared a national emergency to justify deployment of troops at the U.S. border. In this declaration, Trump targets undocumented illegal immigrants, dangerously and falsely calling efforts by vulnerable people to seek sanctuary in our country an invasion tantamount to an attack on America's sovereignty. Immigration is neither, and there is no base for either a national emergency or troop deployment. Actually, did FEMA provide funding for illegal immigrants? Let's see. Let's see this real quick. You guys see that, right? They're saying right now this is the most recent case of FEMA spending money on illegal immigrants. The claim was FEMA sent $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. Sending this money violated the law and is insubordination of the president's executive order. The money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels. The facts: FEMA does not send money directly to New York hotels. It does administer money on behalf of U.S. Customs and Border Protection authorized by Congress in 2023 for the Shelter and Services Program. It was created to support local governments and non-government organizations that provide support to non-citizens released by immigration authorities, according to the FEMA website. That means that FEMA, right? What is FEMA, you might ask? The Federal Emergency Management Administration, right? About FEMA from FEMA.gov. Okay. The Federal Emergency Management Agency. Oh, so they only act in federally declared emergencies. Abusing the emergency power. So how is it that FEMA administered funding to illegal immigrants unless Joe Biden declared an emergency revolving around illegal immigration to then access funds from FEMA to give to illegal immigrants? Yeah, exactly. So Joe Biden declared a national emergency secretly because of illegal immigration in order to get appropriations from Congress and appropriate money from other agencies in the federal government in order to fucking release that money for programs revolving illegal immigrants. There is no abuse of power for declaring a national emergency. It is a national emergency. Improperly declared a national energy emergency to protect and benefit fossil fuel companies and to block renewable energy sector. I don't know about y'all, but gas is at $3 a fucking gallon where I live, and I live in the poorest fucking state in the United States. That's rough for a lot of fucking people. That is rough. I'm pretty sure that's tantamount to a national energy emergency. Again, they're not actually outlining anywhere in the Constitution that's been violated or anything like that. This entire case to impeach Trump is predicated based on they don't like what Trump is doing, so they have to impeach him. That is an abuse of the impeachment clause. That's the power afforded to Congress to actually put a balance on fucking executive power. You are abusing the power of Congress and trying to manipulate the power of Congress through emotions in order to achieve your ideological ends. Blocking efforts to secure U.S. elections. The United States is facing unprecedented threats of foreign and domestic interference in U.S. elections from entities that have resources, tools, and capacity to hack our election systems and emails of high-level officials. Wow! Wow! It's almost like in 2020, conservatives were saying that elections are not secure, and therefore we need to stop using digital systems to run our elections. And here the left is saying that entities have the resources, tools, and capacity to hack our election systems and the emails of high-level officials and to spread disinformation and propaganda via social media platforms. You know why they're making this claim? Right? We're about to get into it. National intelligence agencies have concluded that Russia carried out a multifaceted assault on the 2016 election to benefit Trump, and that Russia, Iran, and China continue to attempt to interfere in U.S. elections via hacking and widespread propaganda and misinformation campaigns. They also concluded that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election on behalf of the Democrats in order to try to secure another democratically controlled presidency to continue funding of Ukraine. And pro-Trump operatives and election officials associated with efforts to overturn the 2020 election have unlawfully breached voting systems and obtained copies of voting machine software, which they have widely shared and which can be exploited to undermine our election systems, despite these known risks Trump has directly or through his close allies. Wow. You mean that the United States government investigated the voting systems that are being used in our elections that you just claimed are not secure and are under threat by constant fucking hacking attempts by foreign adversaries? And then they shared that information with various other individuals as per the investigation in order to find out what the actual vulnerabilities are? Yeah, unfortunately, when you expose vulnerabilities, they can be exploited. But you have to identify the vulnerabilities in order to fix the vulnerabilities. Ordered the apolitical cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency to halt all election security work and fired 130 CISO cybersecurity professionals. Yeah, do you know why they did that? Because these cybersecurity professionals are aiding actual election interference by promoting the use of fucking electronic voting systems in our elections. Conservatives have already proposed voter IDs and paper ballots for our fucking voting system here in this country, because that's the most secure it can get. The more you digitalize voting, the more you fucking do all the shit Democrats have been doing, the more insecure you make our elections. Disbanded the FBI task force assigned to investigate unlawful foreign influence in U.S. elections. Yeah, maybe that's because they weren't actually investigating unlawful interference in U.S. elections. That's why the United States Congress, under the Democrats, still want to send hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, even though they interfered in the election in 2016. And those same intelligence in officials, need I mind you, that they're quoting right now, fabricated the Steele dossier to claim that there was Russian interference in the 2016 election and then said that Trump was a Russian agent. So that's already been debunked. There was an investigation into that and it was found to be debunked. Ordered the DOJ to investigate the state criminal conviction of Tina Peters, a Trump ally who gave a man unlawful access to voting equipment in May 2021, enabling the equipment's passwords and copies of its hard drives to be posted online. Wow, oh my God, there was a whistleblower and you guys are upset that someone aided a whistleblower? Jesus Christ. So again, they don't actually outline anything that's being violated here. They literally just told you, guys, they literally just told you that the United States is facing unprecedented threats of foreign and domestic interference in U.S. elections. And then they claimed the 2020 election was the safest in U.S. history. You see the game they're playing? You fucking see? Unconstitutionally usurping local and state authority. No, he hasn't. Trump has attempted unconstitutionally commandeer local and state authority to carry out his mass deportation plans by threatening state and local officials with criminal prosecution. They decline to be co-opted by federal immigration authorities. State law enforcement is required to cooperate with federal law enforcement because federal law supersedes state law. In a blatant disregard to the power reserved to the states under the 10th Amendment, Trump, via his then acting deputy attorney general, issued a memorandum asserting the authority to require state and local actors to comply with the executive branch's anti-immigration enforcement commands. Yes, because under the 10th Amendment, you fucks, oh, I'm so sick and tired of you. The power is not delegated to the United States, which is the federal government, by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, right? Which means if they don't expressly state that the state doesn't do it, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The power to regulate immigration is reserved by the federal government. Therefore, cooperation by state governments to assist in federal efforts to enforce federal law is required by the Constitution of the United States. Fuck out of here. Engaging in unlawful corrupt practices during the 2024 presidential campaign. All right, love you. Trump must be investigated for unlawful, unconstitutional, or corrupt practices that occurred during his 2024 re-election campaign, which include... Okay. Violating campaign finance laws by offering a tax and regulatory favors to oil and gas executives as they provide $1 billion in contributions, concealing legal services payments by his campaign and related super PACs, unlawfully coordinating with super PACs that supported his candidacy, including those financed by billionaires he later appointed to key administrative positions, and facilitating and accepting unlawful campaign contributions from Musk, particularly via Musk's $1 million lottery scheme that paid out prizes only to individuals who would publicly support Trump. Yeah, wow, there was a lottery that someone offered up for people who voted for Trump. And you want to know something? They didn't use federal funding to do it. Biden, though, Democrats, use federal funding, a promise of federal funding to give to people in order for them to vote for them. So we're saying that now we want to say that's a violation of fucking campaign practice. Okay. Well, guess what? That means every time Democrats fucking try to promote the use and the expansion of social welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, universal based income, all that stuff, that's illegal. This is the way we're going, right? This is the way we're going. He didn't offer tax and regulatory favors to oil and gas executives if they provide $1 billion in contributions. Tax and oil and gas executives provided $1 billion in contributions to his political campaign because one of the things he was running on was reducing regulation on oil and fucking gas companies in order to expand energy production in the United States. So you see how they inverse it to make it seem like it was terrible, right? Like they reverse it to make it seem as if it's malicious. Concealing legal services payments by his campaign and related super PACs. Wow. Like there's some sensitivity for certain legal services revolving his campaign. Wow, it's almost like everybody does that, right? Because there's certain legal discretion. Unlawfully coordinating with super PACs that supported his candidacy, including those financed by billionaires he later appointed to key administrative positions. Like who? The only person they're talking about here who's a billionaire who has been appointed to anything as an inferior officer, which is granted to the president as one of his constitutional powers, was Musk. Right? And wow, Musk using his own money to host a lottery for individuals who support Trump. People vote for presidents for financial reasons every fucking election. What do you mean? The only difference between Elon Musk and Democrats at this point is that he used his own personal money and not the money of the taxpayers. So you tell me right now, are we going full retard? Are we going full retard? Because if we're going full retard, let's go full retard, baby. Let's go full retard. And that means you're coming for conservatives for lesser abuses than what you're committing. So we're coming for you. But then you notice how you're saying you're upset about the people that are committing greater abuses than conservatives they're just being removed from their federal positions. They're not actually being thrown in prison and you're upset about that. Oh yeah, it's going to get bad. Using racist, xenophobic rhetoric that endangered the safety of marginalized communities. What? What are you talking about? He didn't use any racist, xenophobic rhetoric that endangered the safety of marginalized communities.
Clearly,
this is Joseph Biden. Are y'all ready for this? This is Joseph Biden.
indicates that there was intent. The court found the plan with unerring precision slices through the city's traditional subunit, the ward, in a racially selective manner, leaving intact predominantly white wards while carving up those densely populated by blacks. As of the governor, the court concludes, quote, the governor's opposition to the Nunes plan was predicated in significant part on his delineation of a majority black district centered in Orleans Parish. In a confidential portions of your staff memo, they brought to your attention the allegation that important legislators in defeating the Nunes plan in the basement said, quote, we already have a nigger mayor and we don't need any more nigger big shots.
Y'all just heard that, right? He just said the N-word twice. Joe Biden saying black people aren't black if they don't vote for him.
I want to ask you about your running mate. I don't know if you saw. Well, I saw the day that the news report broke that Amy Klobuchar was being vetted, and a lot of people on social media, they're not too happy about that, and it's because they want your running mate to be a black woman. I don't know if you saw the op-ed in the Washington Post by some of the leading black women voices in this country, and they feel since black women are such a loyal voting bloc, and black people saved your political life in the primaries this year, they have things they want from you, and one of them is a black woman running mate. What do you say to them?
What I say to them is that I'm not acknowledging anybody who is being considered, but I guarantee you there are multiple black women being considered. Multiple.
You know,
Thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
They don't have no.
He literally just told a black man that if he's having a problem figuring out whether or not he's voting for Biden over Trump, then he ain't black. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. And you guys heard that clip, right? You heard that clip. They literally just affirmed the fact that Kamala Harris was the vice president of Joe Biden because liberals were pushing that a black woman needed to be the vice presidential candidate for Joe Biden because they vote for Biden. It proves that Kamala Harris wasn't the vice president based on merit. All right, so there we go. Threatening physical violence against political opponents, a U.S. military commander, journalists, and protesters. Where? Is there a link? Is there a link here? Because that's you just saying it. Where? What physical violence? Spreading dangerous disinformation about U.S. hurricane disaster response that undermine the safety of natural disaster survivors and emergency response service providers. Did FEMA remove a woman? A female employee was fired for directing her team to avoid canvassing devastated Florida homes with Trump campaign signs. The employee was accused of skipping houses with Trump signs and claimed she was following protocol. This incident is under investigation. Fired female worker defends skipping homes with Trump flag from the Miami Herald. Fuck out of here. A female employee who was fired for directing her team to avoid canvassing devastated Florida homes with Trump campaign signs is defending herself, stating in an interview that she followed standard protocol on avoiding hostility towards FEMA workers in the field. Marnie Washington, the fired FEMA disaster survivor assistance worker who led a crew in Florida after Hurricane Milton, told Roland Martin, a longtime media commentator, on his digital show that the agency provides clear guidance to disengage from politically hostile communities regardless of their political affiliation. Great. But you see the issue here. This is just one woman where it's been found, right? It was so flagrant that they couldn't bury it. They couldn't bury the lead. They couldn't kick it under the fridge. They couldn't fucking stuff it under the rug, right? It was so flagrant, they couldn't hide it. So what the fuck do you mean spreading dangerous disinformation about U.S. hurricane disaster? No, Trump was right. Trump said that they were skipping conservatives in the Carolinas and in Florida because of their political affiliation. And that woman confirmed it. Because the government and the media and leftists are saying that conservatives are hostile based on their fucking political affiliation for supporting Make America Great Again. You mean to tell me you think that if someone's life has been completely destroyed, they might be injured, they might be starving, they might have lost a loved one because of a natural disaster, and you show up to help them? And they believe in making America great again? You think they're going to be hostile to you? Are you fucking dense? No, we just fucking proved it live right here that Trump didn't fucking spread any disinformation. This is www.impeachtrumpagain.org. Guys, this is the Democrat website for trying to impeach Trump. And we just debunked all 13 of their reasons here now. And if you notice on here, they have some links that go to articles of the Constitution. Okay? Because that's what they're trying to use as their basis to argue their point. But they're not providing any evidence as to why they're making those claims. Right? Like, we went through it line by line, firing people because they don't like that people are being fired.